Stand for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for all those who have passed away in our community during the past week. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Loscom?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. McGough?
Here. Dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A Lackawanna County Planning Commission Subdivision and Land Development Evaluation received on April 2, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B Minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held March 26, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C Agenda for the City Planning Commission meeting held April 23, 2014.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Are there any clerk's notes?
Nothing, Mr. McGough.
Do any council members have announcements?
Mr. McGough, I have one. St. John Newman Parish will hold their roast beef dinner on Sunday, April 27th. The roast beef dinner will be held at Holy Name of Jesus Church. It will take place from 12 to 4. Tickets at the door are $13 for adults and $7 for children. And I'd like to say this is my home parish, and it's a delicious meal, so please attend.
Just two announcements. St. Joseph's Melkite Catholic Church, located at 130 North St. Francis Cabrini Avenue in West Scranton, will hold its annual breakfast fundraiser this coming Sunday, April 27th, from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. The delicious meal consists of eggs, pancakes, potatoes, ham, olives, bread, juice, coffee, and tea. Tickets can be purchased at the door. Adult tickets are $7.50 each, and children aged 10 and younger eat for $4. Secondly, this past week was Earth Day, and I just wanted to make the announcement that any residents that are looking to pick up recycling bins can do so at the DPW complex at 101 West Popular Street. And in addition to that, I know I've announced it a few times from council, but you can now recycle your cardboard in with your newspapers. Just by putting your cardboard in with your red container, the DPW will pick that up. And please recycle it. It helps the environment, and it does save the city money on our fees at the dump. Thank you.
Mr. Gunn?
Yes, I just have two. Thank you. This Saturday, April 26th, the Manuka Lions Club will hold their 9th annual Autism Awareness Night. It will be held at Divine Mercy Parish Hall on Davis Street in Manuka from 6 to 11 p.m. Tickets are $15 and are available at the door. They will have appetizers, beverages, entertainment, and door prizes. All proceeds will go to the Friendship House Autistic Program, Allied Services Pediatric, Parents Loving Children Through Autism, and the Manuka Lions Club Autism Foundation. Also, the Tour de Scranton, benefiting the Aaron Jessica Marakin Drug and Alcohol Treatment Fund, will be held this Sunday, April 27th. Also, the Tour de Scranton 5K River Run and Walk on the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail will be held this Sunday, April 27th. Aaron's Fund was established in 2002 for the purpose of helping young people find and obtain treatment for their drug and alcohol addictions. Aaron Jessica Marakin was a resident of our area, graduate of Scranton High School, and student at Temple University when she met a premature death at the age of 28 due to a drug overdose. The Tour de Scranton is being held in her memory so that young people of our region may benefit from treatment and live their lives and their dreams by conquering their addictions through treatment. Registration for this event is available on the day of the event, which would be this Sunday. The run registration starts at 7 a.m. at the Scranton Running Company at the Icebox. The race starts at 8 a.m. Bike and walk registration starts at 9 a.m. at Scranton High School, and the start time for walk and all bike routes is 10 a.m. There is online registration available for the run walk. You can find out more information about this event at tourdscranton.com. Thank you.
Last week at the meeting, it was one of the speakers had questions about the microphone at the podium, and after the meeting, it was mentioned by the people that operate the controls from ECTV that the microphone is not individually modulated, that because of the way different people, the pitch of their voice and so on, that it will change depending upon the speaker, that it's left at the same modulation for everyone. I will also mention that, yes, there is a control switch that can turn the microphones off. I don't know that it has ever been used by anyone. So if there is a difference in sound, it is primarily because of the person, basically the person speaking, and not anything that's being technically done. In a prior week, I did mention, and one of the speakers also mentioned, a problem with furniture on porches and patios and things. We did look up the law governing that. It's the file of council number 2 from 2000, and it was the adoption of the 96 Boca National Property Maintenance Code, 5th edition. And basically what it says, no person shall use interior furniture such as upholstered furniture on exterior decks, porches, and balconies. Only furniture that is manufactured for outdoor use shall be used. And we spoke during the caucus that as the hopefully summer months approach, that maybe we will ask the police, housing inspectors, et cetera, to make note of any properties that are in violation of this, so that it can be resolved. And last, one item, another item that was mentioned, I think, last week, and that was was there a limit on billable hours for the financial service that was hired, PFM? And the answer is that for 2014, there is no cap on billable hours, simply because there is no budget line item for that. Any work that would be done by PFM would come out of the proceeds of whatever the transaction, from whatever the transaction was, which we've done in the past. I don't think that that's a great idea, but because of the fact that there's no budgeted item for this, that would be how it would be paid. I was told that in 2015, there will be a line item in the budget, and that the idea of a cap on billable hours will be looked at for that line item. And as far as tonight's agenda, I should just make note that the 5B, the ordinance 5B governing the disposal of city-owned personal property by adding subsection C, what it does is this would allow the city to utilize online services for the sale of city property, the property that had normally, we just either gave away or whatever. This would allow us to use internet services and basically an internet auction to sell that property. And that's all.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
First speaker, Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton resident.
Good evening.
Mr. Rogan, do you recall back on January 16th, we discussed North Scranton Junior High School, the Goodwill Project?
Yes.
And I had made the comment that we had to take a hard look at that project because it's either going to be a going concern or we have to cut our losses, one or the other. And in discussions with you, I asked, when would we know whether it was a viable project or not? And you said April 15th, tax day. Well, I missed you last week. Can you give us a status on that project?
Sure. The last I spoke to Linda Abley, Director of OECD, about this project is that the developers were in talks with HUD regarding vouchers for the future residents. That's all of the information that we were giving at that point. Obviously, I think we're all disappointed that there is no construction as of yet, but it's something I'll continue to follow up on.
I wish you would. It seems to me, and it's just my impression, that we have people come in with projects and they get what they need and then they fall off the radar screen until maybe they need more money. And I would hate to see this happen again, that the next time this project raises its head publicly in City Council is another kind of crisis. If you can, at least a monthly check on what progress they're making, because if they don't make progress in the next 3 months, you've got to ask yourself what's going on here. Right. Okay? But I thank you if you would do that. And I was one who had concerns about PFM last week and about the billable hours. And I would also ask, who would be handling finance? Is that you, Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Perhaps you could, just kind of monitor how many hours are being racked up so that by the time we get into the budget process at the end of the year, maybe that would give you the ammunition you need to make sure that the last 3 years of the contract, there is some kind of cap on those billable hours, because I see the ghost of Carl Greco walking through these halls. And
We've already discussed it with Mr. Balzoni, and the goal is to have that be a line item in the budget in 2015.
Oh, I could see that, and I understand, that obviously it's not in the current budget, but I think that I would not want to be surprised 1 year from now, when he walks forward with the bill, and we're kind of shocked because we're hurting already, and you know that. But I would appreciate if you could kind of watch that, and periodically I will come up here and I'll ask, do you have any kind of idea how many hours they've racked up? Because it can go high very quickly. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dave Francis?
Faye Furness, Scranton.
Good evening.
Good evening. In regards to last week's vote on SECO versus Peters Engineering, and you voted for SECO, there's some question as to whether that was a legal vote or not. I don't know. Do you go by Robert's rules at all? Do you listen to them? Do you pay any attention to them at all? Or don't you know?
We operate under the rules of council on voting.
You don't go by any Robert's rules?
Yes. It's basically based on Robert's Rules of Order.
Well, there was one paragraph in Robert's rules that saying if two people, if one person abstains, one says no, and two people vote yes, that's a failed vote. So that means it dies. That means the vote didn't work, even though you passed it. So I'm going to add, I guess, because will you check into that and see what was legal or not, or do I have to go get a right to know letter like everybody else has to?
I will ask Attorney Minora to check into that, yes.
And get the legal standing on that vote. Mr. Rogan, how would you have voted last week since you...
I voted for SECO in the initial stage, and I likely would have voted for them last week.
You would have voted?
What was that?
You would have voted for SECO last week?
Very likely, yes.
Okay. Now, another issue. Last week when you had your caucus in your back room, Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Schreiber there, the lawyer for the city, dealing with the SECO, matter. Now, I've asked this before, and I'll say it again. I'd like to know why any of you council members, and if you all feel this way, don't say anything, but if any one of you feel differently, please speak now. Why would you think that the people here at home, I know they could come here, but you know they're not going to come here. Why would you not want to have, when people come into your caucus to give you information and answer your questions, why you wouldn't want that in these council chambers for transparency? So you come out here and you say, oh, Mr. Shrive said this, Mr. Gallagher said that. It's not word for word. The people would like to hear it themselves, what they had to say. What is the harm in having these people, like tonight when Tom Borthwick from Parking Authority came in, nobody heard what he said. What is so wrong with having, like Mrs. Evans used to have all those caucuses here in chambers? Why would you not want to do that? Anybody? So does that mean that everybody there agrees with having it in the back room so that people can't hear what's going on?
The information is to be provided, is for the use of council members. That's how representative government works.
That's a joke.
No, it's not. It's
Well, when
way
Mrs.
the
Evans'
government
council
works.
was there at Mr. Joyce and Mr. Loscom, Mr. Rogan, they always had the caucuses out here in the public. And Mrs. Evans said, if you don't want to be out here for the public to hear you, we're not going to even have you here. So you can't tell me you don't want the people to hear, and that's the bottom line as far as that goes. And Mr. Borthwick said tonight something about, for street cleaning in the winter, no parking after 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, that makes sense for street cleaning for the snow. But then he mentioned people in the city of Scranton shouldn't park on the streets after 2 a.m. We could get more money for the parking garages. Like the people can't park on the street after 2 a.m. because all the bars are closed and the restaurants. Well, let me tell you something. That'd be the day when somebody would tell me I can't park on a city street, when everybody else in the city of Scranton could park in front of their house, just so the city can make more money in the parking garages. I hope that never happens. Now, another thing, the street cleaning. They're going to come maybe once a year. We're all going to know what street we're going to have cleaned so we can move our cars. Wow. We should all get our paper and pen out and thank the city. Wilkes-Barre, 44, Kingston. They get their street cleaned every week of the year. Every week. Police car goes in front, and they all have their cars moved, and if you don't have them moved, you get a ticket. That's good revenue for the city. I asked this council years ago, why don't you check with Wilkes-Barre, Kingston, and 44 and ask them how do they run their program? Because it's certainly working down there. Because when I was a meter reader, we knew where to park every day when we were down in areas, where not to park for street cleaning. They got their street cleaned, and they still do to this day. Every week of the year they get their street cleaned. We're going to get it done one day of the year, and we're all supposed to be thrilled. As we all have to go out with our brooms and throw our stuff on our streets. We have to sweep our own streets. And we're paying a $300 garbage fee. This is disgraceful. Another thing. Mr. Wexler, I've heard you say about 3 sentences as far as finance since you've been here. Frank Joyce talked about a half an hour every night. He let the people know what was going on. And these meetings are over like in an hour. Well, I wonder why, because every time somebody comes to this podium and they ask a question, nobody has any answers. Oh, we'll check into that. Oh, I don't know. Do you know? Oh, no, I don't know. We'll check into that. No wonder they're so early. Nobody knows anything. This council is a disgrace.
Thank you for your comments. Gerard Hepman.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Gerard Hepman from Lackawanna County's Community Relations Department. To begin this evening, it was brought to the attention of the Lackawanna County Commissioner's Office earlier this week that individuals have been soliciting residents of Lackawanna County who are military veterans, and the individuals in question have been claiming to identify themselves as employees or in some way as affiliated with the Lackawanna County Department of Veterans Affairs. These individuals have been trying to sell life insurance products to the veterans they have been soliciting. Please let me be clear on behalf of the Lackawanna County Commissioners and the Lackawanna County Department of Veterans Affairs that the Veterans Affairs staff does not solicit veterans or any other residents of Lackawanna County or any individuals for the sale of life insurance or any other insurance products or any products. Our Veterans Affairs staff does conduct outreach visits with veterans upon request, but those visits are always scheduled in advance, and the Veterans Affairs staff all carry county-issued photo identification badges, very similar to, actually identical to, except for my ugly mug, the badges that I have here, my personal identification, and that identification is always available upon request from any county employee who deals with the public, including our Veterans Affairs staff. The Commissioners and the Veterans Affairs staff encourages anyone who may have been approached by these individuals and does not feel comfortable dealing with them to contact the Scranton Police Department. For city residents or for any other resident of the county, to contact the local law enforcement agency in their municipality. Turning to summer events, and two of our best ones are coming up the next 2 Saturdays. First, just a reminder that our second annual Bike Safety Fair for Children comes up this Saturday, April 26th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at McDade Park in Scranton. As we discussed before, the Bike Safety Fair features bicycle safety demonstrations by the Scranton Police Department and the Lackawanna County Sheriff's Office. We'll also have free bicycle helmets for all children who attend. They are fitted for different sizes, for different ages. We'll also have refreshments and many other activities. Hopefully we get a good weather day, but the event will be rain or shine. And we look forward to seeing many children out. We had a great turnout last year, and it's a great cause for safety. With bicycle ridership increasing now with the warm weather, it's a great chance for children to learn how to ride safely and get the proper helmets to do that. And then next Saturday, Saturday, May 3rd, at PNC Field in Moosic, in conjunction with the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, our department will host the first Family Fun Day at PNC Field. It takes place Saturday, May 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at PNC Field in Moosic. The event features an open house of the stadium with guided tours by Rail Rider staff. Visitors will get to see all the places they get to see normally during a ball game, but also pretty much everything behind the scenes at the stadium will be included on the tour, with the exception of the home locker rooms, because the players' valuables are secured in that part of the facility. There'll also be plenty of giveaways and other activities put on by the Rail Riders. We'll have the Sheriff's Office Mounted Unit as well as the Canine Unit doing demonstrations, with the Mounted Unit giving supervised horse rides, and with many other activities. Should be a great day out at the ballpark, and we invite everyone to come out and see a great local facility that's one of the premier facilities in minor league sports in the United States. And then also, on the note of economic development, on Friday, April 4th, in conjunction with Marywood University, the Lackawanna County Department of Economic Development opened the Lackawanna County Marywood University Entrepreneurial Launchpad Space. The Launchpad is an open workspace that's located on the first floor of the Scranton Electric Building, just around the corner from City Hall in the Scranton Electric Building on Linden Street. Right on the first floor in the right side of the door, in the space formerly occupied by the County Controller's Office. When I say open workspace, the Launchpad is open Monday through Friday from 9:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. It's a place where entrepreneurs, business owners, attorneys, students, council members can all come in and do work during the day. There's free Wi-Fi available. There's also large meeting areas with plenty of tables and chairs, furniture donated by Marywood University and the University of Scranton. And we also have some smaller offices and breakout rooms for smaller meetings that may need to take place. It's a great space for anyone doing work downtown who needs to have a place where they can talk and do business, possibly a restaurant or our library facility, which is very good, may not be suitable for those purposes because we need to talk, meet, discuss things. That's what this facility is there for. We want to make it easy for people to work and do business in downtown Scranton, and we hope that this facility, in conjunction with Marywood, makes that available and possible to everyone who utilizes downtown Scranton's facilities. So that's all we have for this evening. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Whitman.
Thank you.
Andy Sparaglia?
Andy Spragley, says Scranton, fellow Scrantonians.
Good evening.
Who is actually responsible for the repairs of the parking authority garages? Or the garages, parking garages, let's say not even mentioning the authority. Who is actually responsible?
I don't know for sure. I would say at this point in time, it would probably be the receiver.
Well, I suggest you find out, because every time, every hour that garage is closed costs us money. Your bond payments are going to go sky high, because as the garages are not making money, you have to make up the difference. It's just simple economics. So I presume you should ask somebody. And if you get a good answer, tell us all, because this is going to cost us money. It's a shame. Again, with the police and firemen, again, with their money from that was owed to them for their non-payment of all them years they worked under that no raise. Although they did get, like Mrs. Finucci pointed out, they did get their longevity payments. That was paid. She pointed it out very, very clear to us. Something has to be done there. I don't know who can do it, but something has to be done. I mean, that pension fund keeps getting worse and worse, is the best way to describe it. And something got to be done that way. Somebody got to take up something, at least tell the people. Maybe you can't do a darn thing. Maybe we're going to get that 50% increase that I predicted in taxes after the 100%, which is probably what we're going to get. But at least tell the people so they know why they're getting it. I mean, them handicap signs, I told you that. Why are you picking on the handicap? You went away and did it. Why are you picking on the churches? You went away and did it. All these things you have done, now they're falling fruit. People ain't happy with their $10 for their handicap sign. But what do you care? They got to pay, not you. What do you care when the churches come up and have to pay that amusement tax? They're going to love you. I can see that right now. These are the things you passed that's coming to fruit now. Everything that you did is now coming to fruit. People aren't happy. I wish they can have a vote now, but they can't. Unfortunately, we got to wait. But the damage is being done, and it's being done every day. The longer we don't address our problems, the worse it gets. And people got to know, especially people who are in real bad fixed incomes, who can't afford what's going to happen. But I tried for, I don't know, about 15 years we've been coming before you and try to explain to you that this thing is all going to happen. The paper, of course, found out about it and called us the Legion of Doom. True, we were the Legion of Doom, but we didn't want to be the Legion of Doom. We wanted to be happy people. Like I once explained, all I wanted to do was coast out. I'm up at 75. I wanted to coast off. My Gladys played for the cathedral. I wanted to go there happily. But unfortunately, I'm not, because too many people are being hurt. And very few people come down here that actually know what's happening. It's a shame. More people should come. Not only when they get them raises in taxes or fees that are pushed up, or nuisance fees is what I call them. And you were great on passing a lot of them nuisance fees. I don't know why you picked on the handicap for them signs. I know you had a lot of mumbo jumbo and why, but it wasn't worth it. It was really to make money. That's the sad part about it. When you tax the handicap to make money, believe me, you're really down in the dumps. I'm afraid that this is the way we're going to go. We're going to slide, slide, slide. And none of us have an answer, and I don't know if there is an answer. I really don't, because we're at a point now where that Chapter 9 looks better and better and better, unfortunately. But too many people are hurt with Chapter 9. That's the only problem with it. Because pensions, people depend on their pensions. I'll come back again.
Thank you.
Ozzie Quinn?
Ozzie Quinn.
Good evening.
Good evening. I want to thank Councilman Lexler and Councilman Gahn for attending last night's Hill Neighborhood Association meeting. That's been about the first time I think elected Scranton officials have been there in over a decade. There's been times that there were conflicts of meetings, but there was times when there wasn't. And I want to express the fact that the people appreciated very much that you were there, okay? To see elected officials on their own turf. Thank you very much. I would like to know, a person asked me a question last night at the meeting, a member, and I didn't know, and I said I'd find out. The audit of the Recreation Authority, when was the last audit was done? Do you have any idea?
I think it was 2012, right, Mrs. Reed? Because I had asked Mrs. Reed today. I have the document, I just got it when I came in, but I haven't looked through it yet. But I do have it. I think 2012 and 2011 are the
Do
ones
you
that we
have any idea, by looking at Browns, can you tell me how much revenue they have in their treasury?
Let me see.
They only operate the pools that they are.
It says current assets, cash, $35,624. Fixed assets, property, plant, and equipment at cost, $190,803.
So what's their balance?
220,000, I think. I don't know. There's a bunch of numbers on this page here. I think it's 220. I don't know.
220,000?
I think. I don't know. There's a lot of numbers here. Like I said, I just got it when I came in. It was in my mailbox, so I haven't had a chance to go through the whole thing. But
Okay, and what's the cost for, do you have any idea what it costs for chemicals? And do they bid them out?
I think $300,000 it cost a
think that
year
was
for
all the
chemicals.
pools,
That was for all of them?
Right.
Do you know if, how much it was for the NAOG and where they bid out?
I'm not sure. I know it was...
I don't want to put you, I know you just got it, yeah.
No, yeah, no, I understand. I think it was bid out, because I remember seeing it in the, for pool services, right?
And if I may, just to clarify, it wasn't an audit, it's an annual report that they submit to the council and the BA.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an audit.
Okay.
It's not an audit. So, there's a big difference between an audit and a report.
Right.
They a municipal authority? Are they under the Municipal Authorities Act?
I believe so.
Could they be what's name, dissolved?
I'm not exactly positive on that one.
No,
don't
when
know.
I was on the redevelopment authority, I know that we dissolved the redevelopment authority. After it paid its bills, we made sure the bills were paid, and the money was then given over to the city, you know? And I don't see any function for that authority, you know, other than, you know, keep a few lawyers and other people happy, you know? I want to thank you for following up on the ordinance on the couches. That'll make a lot of people happy, unhappy. But, you know, I want to, it's the first time that you can call lips and you actually get a person. And they call back, and Brian McCain, who's been appointed to the lips for the Hill section, and he talks to me, calls me, I talk back to him. And so him and Mr. Hinton and Lips are doing a good job, okay? And they've been reporting to, I really appreciate that, okay? And thank you for that ordinance for the couches again. And I'll be back about the pools, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Doug Miller?
Good evening, Council. Doug Miller, Scranton. Just briefly before I get into some of my issues here, recently I had the chance to speak with Mr. Bolus, and he informed me that himself and a group of investors and developers from New York are going to be looking into the acquisition of the mall at Steamtown later this summer. I was told that there's some major discussion taking place on a multi-million-dollar investment in the mall, including discussion by developers and investors partnered with Mr. Bolus that will be looking into pursuing the application of a gaming license. This proposed project, you know, is hopeful to create thousands of jobs for the area, provide prosperity to the city and residents across the city. And when I do get more information on this proposed development, I will certainly share that with this council. Moving on, some issues here. I neglected to discuss this last week due to time constraints, but we're approaching that time of year where we discuss our swimming pool situation, and yet again, the discussion is going to take place as to what pools will be in operation this year. Had the chance to speak with quite a few individuals the last few weeks. Mr. Preamble from the Office of Economic and Community Development, who invited me into his office, and I really appreciate his courtesy and his willingness to allow me to come in and sit down and review some applications in regards to the Pine Brook neighborhood swimming pool. Also spoke with Mr. Tom Lynch, who is allegedly going to be overseeing the swimming pools this summer. But the main issue I had here was in regards to the Pine Brook swimming pool. As we can recall, the previous council had quite a few CDBG applications presented, and obviously you were left with, well, the previous council was left with the difficult decision of determining which programs were deserving of funding. And if we could recall, initially the Pine Brook Neighborhood Group applied for $185,000 for repairs needed at Pine Brook. We can recall OECD came here publicly in a caucus and recommended to the council at the time that no funding be allocated towards that particular project. Fast forwarding a little bit, the council determined that $45,000 was appropriate at the time, and that was approved. Speaking with Mr. Lynch, I obviously discussed the situation and what the intentions were of this administration on opening the Pine Brook neighborhood pool, as well as Novembrino. As we know, that's also a pool at issue. And he made it quite clear to me that the administration has absolutely no intention on opening those swimming pools this summer due to repairs that need to be made. I informed Mr. Lynch that there was $45,000 floating out there that was allocated for Pine Brook, and at the time he wasn't quite aware of that. In fact, he thought I was giving him wrong information. But when you partake in public discussion and you pay attention, these are things you know. I asked him to look into that, knowing I was right, but I hadn't heard back from him, so I'm sure he did find out that that was the case. Must be miscommunication with the new administration, but I just think it's quite disturbing that we're not informing department heads or officials that are overseeing city assets on these types of things. I think that there's a real serious lack of communication there, and that's information Mr. Lynch should have been given on day one. But it just yet again goes to show that there's just no priority set. I mean, it's just really sad and pathetic that a city can't operate a basic necessity such as a swimming pool. I mean, these are pools that were built in the 70s. I mean, we're talking about pools that are over 30 years old. That's really not that old. I mean, if you take care of your assets and you maintain them, these types of things don't happen. And we have an inability to take care of the basic necessity, everyday needs. I mean, look at the parking garages. They're falling apart. It's just little things that we always have a difficult time doing. And then we sit here and we talk and we do an awful lot of thinking. Maybe it's time to start thinking, and maybe we should start getting some answers. We do an awful lot of thinking, and you see where we are. It doesn't lead us anywhere. Let's get some answers. Now, yet again, another summer, these kids are going to suffer in Pine Brook and over in West Side. But in speaking with Mr. Preamble, he did inform me that the $45,000 that was allocated can be transferred over to next year if Pine Brook is willing to reapply and basically break down with a budget the repairs that need to be made. But instead of having a neighborhood group do that, maybe we should do that ourselves, because these are our swimming pools, and maybe we should take a role in determining what repairs need to be made so that we can finally get an answer and determine the costs. Nayout Park, $5 to swim, is quite disrespectful to the residents of this community. I understand we have obligations of paying lifeguards. If we can recall, a couple years ago, the previous council allocated funding to pay lifeguards, and if we remember, the previous administration took that funding and used it to restore 4 DPW employees that were cut. So instead of thinking, let's get answers so that people don't have to no longer suffer, they pay tax dollars, and we can't even manage our assets properly. That's pretty sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Lee Morgan?
Good evening, Council. In regards to this $45,000 for the pool in Pine Brook, do you think maybe the Council could ask tonight if there were contractors or a corporation that would be willing to fix that pool for $45,000 so that we can open it and transfer that money. I mean, publicly ask a corporation inside the city or outside the city to come forward, take a look at that project and see if they could do it for $45,000 and absolutely open that pool so that the residents of this city could use it. And my perspective on that is that that's a public safety issue, because we don't know what these children are going to do or where they may try to swim, and I thought that that's why those pools were put in the first place. We didn't want kids swimming up at the gorge at Naog. We wanted them to be observed by, professional lifeguards and be safe. And, I just think that, with all the problems we have in the city, I think that this city can address that problem and probably solve it. And I just think it'd be a wonderful thing today, before the meeting ends, for the council itself to ask an organization to come forward and try to help us with our problem, because really I believe there is a company in the city or outside the city that will come forward and help us with that issue. And what could it hurt to ask? In regards to, selling, I guess, surplus, if you want to call it, city equipment or whatever we're going to sell on the internet, is the pothole patching machine going to be sold that way?
Is what?
The pothole patching machine going to be sold that way?
I think that's being sold for scrap, actually. I don't believe it works at all.
Do you know how much that machine costs? Do you know what it'll capture and scrap?
I do know that the question was brought up, say about a month or so ago, where it was, and through Denny Gallagher, he told us it was at the sewer authority, and it's been there for the last few years. That when it was originally purchased, there was, I don't know if it got clogged or something happened. This is years ago, and that was really all that ever happened with the machine. It just sat there ever since. It was a terrible purchase when it was made, and it really never worked.
Well, this is only my opinion, but look, that was a very expensive piece of equipment. And if I was going to scrap that machine to somebody who was going to process it and scrap and give me $500 for it, and I could place it on the internet and get $10,000 for it, I think I'd place it on the internet, because that's the marketplace where things really sell. And I think it's time to really start paying attention to how we liquidate the things we own. And that's not a criticism of anybody, but we're in dire straits here. And I'd have to agree, at least in the things that Andy said here tonight, because the residents of this city are just out of their mind with the amount of taxes they're paying, and it's almost, and look, sheep don't revolt, I've said that before, but I'm going to tell you that I've talked to quite a few people lately. They're just beyond themselves. They just can't believe what's taking place here. And when they read in the paper today, the additional cost of the pension and all the taxes they've absorbed, and I have had some seniors ask me if the people who run the city are out of their mind because of what they're living on and the burden you're placing on them. And you look at the houses in the city, you've all campaigned here in the city, so if you take a look at these houses, these are private residences. The porches are falling off them, they're not painted, they're not maintained. If you did the same thing to them that you did to the rental units so you can condemn properties and drive people into poverty, you could probably rip down 50% of the city with no problem whatsoever, because that is the dire straits that people in the city are in. And I have to ask another question, because I sat here, the state senator came, a representative came, a representative's aide came here, and I can't for the life of me understand why the state of Pennsylvania didn't implement something in the legislature and bail this city out, because the debt this city has is beyond its ability to manage or ever pay. And that's my opinion. And when you look at the amount of elderly people in this city and the wage base, I just don't know where we're going. And that's not a criticism of this council, it's just reality that I see. And just talking to people. I mean, something's got to be done. Now, I don't know if the mayor's going to send SAP up here or not, and I don't know what the individual members of council think about that. But, we do need jobs. We do need industrial and manufacturing development, and we need a plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Dave Dobson?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, President. Taxes paid. And what I feel is it's time to start a wish list. We've been going along here, and it's part of my wish list, and it'll probably increase, is tax collections, trash fee collections. We need to, Attorney Hickey was in before the end of the year, and he mentioned that they felt that a great deal of landlords were getting away with the single trash fee. And that could be a big source of money. Also, we really need to push recycling. Pat mentioned the cardboard. Well, every week I put my papers in a cardboard box and fold it up or tape it up, because I used to come home and this little old lady would put her in the city container, and they'd blow all over my lawn on a windy day, you know, and I had to keep the troops under control. Don't say nothing, just, you know. Once you offend a neighbor, sometimes it just keeps going on and on and on. So I've moved around quite a bit in my life, and I understand that. And I'm happy to see that the 1,000 block of Hickory Street has been milled, and there was considerable amount of utility work done. Hopefully now, I think it was the water company, hopefully the sewer authority or the gas company won't be right behind the repairs, because that's where our potholes, 90% of them come from, and they don't get resealed after a couple of years. There's a crack and water gets in, and you have a large pothole forming. And I'd like to talk about Adams Plaza, another building that was abandoned for the Glenmara Industrial Park. And we have a horrible commercial property bubble forming. I heard about it 6 or 7 years ago, that if you thought that the housing bubble was a problem, just wait till the commercial property bubble hits. And that's what we have. And unfortunately, our Chamber of Commerce is facilitating this. We're getting all kinds of commercial property built, and companies are not occupying previous properties or reoccupying them. They're just moving back and forth. And it's really a shame, and it's a big risk. It's not good, because once this hits, for instance, the mall, a lot of that was teacher pension money, funded that. So if it goes under, once again, we're on the hook for a guaranteed pension. The same as the fire and police. We're on the hook for a guaranteed pension. And the investments don't get returned. For some reason, we decide to reinvest in the stock market when it's at an ungodly high, instead of buying when it's crashed out. I wanted to buy through a 401k, and I was told, you are not qualified. Ford stock for $2. I wanted to buy 2,000 shares. Now, today that would probably translate into about $30,000. And I could have, with a $4,000 investment. So that's the way you make money on the stock market, not buying into it when it's at 16,000. That's when you start to smell the smoke. And the Golden Parrot, once again, call your senators, congressmen, the president, especially if you're in a public union, because they're the only unions left. Tell them to scrap the Trans-Pacific Trade Pact. We have enough joblessness, and it's only going to cause more. Once again, now the Golden Parrot goes to President Obama, because he's over in Japan pushing this again. and we never fared out on them. It just results in unemployment, and we already have robotification for 30 years, putting people out of jobs. Now we have trade pact after trade pact after trade pact, and it's not right. Shame. You know, I never thought I'd say it, but shame. The golden parrot goes to President Obama. Thank you. Have a good night. Don't forget, bok bok.
Good evening, Council. Marie Schumacher. First, I would like to ask Mr. McGough if he has the answers to my written questions that I asked at the February 5th meeting for me yet.
I do not.
Okay, thank you. And I, too, would agree with Mrs. Frannis on the abstention last week and the impact of that on the vote, both whether it counts as a no vote and also whether or not it was really, should have been an abstention. If you read the causes for abstaining from a vote, it's a financial interest in the company or the person or entity that's being voted upon, not just knowing them. So I question that. But moving on to 7B tonight, because you will be taking a final vote. Judging from the date of the contract, the firm has been, it appears the firm has been working pre-contractually. Is that true?
I'm sorry, I missed.
I said, judging from the date of the contract, it appears that the firm has been working pre-contractually. Is that true? In other words, they're already working PF?
Seco?
No, the PFM.
I'm talking
I'm
7B.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you can do it during motions. Yeah. Also, Article 3 says the terms and conditions must be or may be supplemented. Is this supplementation with or without the approval of council? I believe that should be in the contract. Okay. Moving on to Article 4. I don't believe that this contract is actually executable because Article 9 states that the city's liability is limited to the appropriations approved for this effort. Now, since Mr. McGough, you told us tonight there is no appropriation for this, then it would be zero for this year because you can't appropriate for 2015 as of yet. So there's no way that this term of the contract can be substantiated. So I think something has to change there, and I would suggest something limiting the amount that they get out of anything that happens next year for their fees. Also, there's no fixed transition fee. That's left open. Will they have to come back to council for that, for approval on that? Now, the other company, the bids were sifted down to 2. The other company that was not selected, of those 2, provided a fixed transaction fee, but there is no fixed transaction fee in this contract, and I don't think you should vote for it until there is. The RFP called for bidders to detail their fees and expenses, so this is really non-compliant because the transaction fee is not fixed and therefore it's not compliant with the RFP. Also, last week, Ms. Hordanowitz noted a disconnect between two fees for the analysts, I believe it was, and it was a difference between $275 an hour and $225 an hour. Has that been corrected in the contract, or which was correct? Was it $275 or $225? Well, I would suggest
Nothing has changed.
Okay, well, there's a disconnect. It says 2 different figures in 2 different places. I don't think you should vote on this until these questions are answered because it's just not right. Okay, enough on 7B. I would like to note that at least this citizen has been following up. Last year, I was against the charging only 0.5% or reducing the agreed-upon contractual interest rate for Alexander's down from what it was to 0.5%. And that was for 6 months, and it was to be revisited. And I just would like to note in advance that, A, I am against that 0.5%. You may as well just give them $1,000. And also that make sure that that does come back before council when that's established. Now, that was for 6 months, so.
I spoke to the attorney from Alexander's earlier in the month, and it is something that will be revisited by council.
Well, yeah, okay. And then on the back up to the, may I finish? Back up to the agenda, I know that I have no trouble getting back up when I request it, and I'm only one person, but during the League of Women Voters debate last year, the mayor said he was definitely in favor of providing that electronically, and that hasn't happened yet, so I would very much like to see that start happening. It would be very helpful, I think, to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to address council?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Wexler?
Thank you, Mr. McGough. I would just like to touch a little bit more on the meeting that Mr. Gahan and I attended last night that Mr. Quinn, as president of the Hill Neighborhood Association, conducted. There was over 50 residents there at the meeting with many, many legitimate concerns about their city. These are tax-paying people who are only asking for basic services. One of the ideas that we've kicked around a little bit in caucus and during this is perhaps doing some type of concentrated effort in certain sections of the city with the concentration of police, inspectors, DPW, just to show the citizens that there are people out and trying to make a difference. These things are happening in the city every day, but they're spread out across the whole city. And not everyone gets to see the results of what the hardworking employees of the city are doing. So this is very much in its infancy stage. We just want to get together a plan that will be effective and useful to the citizens. Also in caucus, we also started to talk about the swimming pools. The city is in a little bit different situation with the rec authority having Naog Park and then the other pools in the city being managed by the city. I know from talking to Mayor Courtright, they are working on some plans to open as many pools as they can in the city. But the reality is we're in a financial bind here. I do agree with what Mr. Morgan said. Perhaps we can find some companies that may want to volunteer services to us through grants and all. But the problem is if we get Pine Brook Pool open, how are we going to staff it? Where are we going to get lifeguards? These are all kinds of things that may be too late for this summer to discuss. But I know going forward there is a commitment from the members of council to try to come up with an improved plan for next summer. I know that's no consolation for this summer, but we are looking towards making the situation better next year. Thank you, Mr. McGough.
Yes, just a few items. I'd first like to thank Mr. Borthwick from the Parking Authority for attending our caucus earlier. There will be much more forthcoming on the city working with the authority on some possible changes and innovations for the better. This morning I attended the PennDOT elected officials meeting and our city business administrator, Dave Bolzoni, was there as well. I just did want to give an update on 2 items that were brought up at council multiple times and that we talked about at the meeting. The first one is Main Avenue in West Scranton. I know this was also in the papers. It is part of PennDOT's plan to mill and pave Main Avenue from the city line in Taylor to the Scranton Expressway. It's by far one of the worst roads in the city. It may not happen this year, unfortunately. It may be in next year's plan. And the reason PennDOT gives for the delay is because as they go in a residential area, they must make all of the curb cuts at each corner handicap accessible. So when this project does begin, Main Avenue will be milled and paved from the expressway to the Taylor border, and also any intersections for pedestrians that are not currently handicap accessible will be made handicap accessible with ramps. So that's where that stands. Next, I know the signalization has been brought up a lot. I know Councilman McGough brought this up a couple weeks ago as well. They did state that all of the signals that needed to be put in and installed, all the installation phase of that project has been completed. What they're currently doing is doing a 30-day review and a 120-day review on the traffic patterns. That's when we could see changes in the signalization. And from talking to residents, I know that some of the downtown lights, they're not synchronized the way they should be. I know in bigger cities, it's a very simple plan. If you're traveling north and south, they're all green once, east and west is red, and then they switch, which makes for a nice free-flowing traffic pattern, and it's good for the individual because you waste less gas idling at red lights. That is something I would like to see happen. PennDOT doesn't seem to want to do it that way in the city, but that's the update on those items. Just a quick comment on the pools and the Recreation Authority. I don't believe that the Recreation Authority should be in charge of the swimming at Naog. I think it should be a function of city government, through the mayor, through city council. We're the elected officials, not the members of the authority. I know this has been an issue for many, many years about the fees to swim at Naog and the other pools that haven't been open much during the last few years. And as somebody who was younger, when I grew up, we would walk down to the neighborhood pool and swim. And it was either free or I think it might have been $1. But one of the things I would like to see implemented is free swimming for Scranton children in the city of Scranton. And to prove that, all you would need to do is have a report card from your school to show that you're enrolled in a Scranton public school or a private school in the city. I think that would be an easy way to provide free swimming for, at least for the children. Now, the parents, they may have to pay, and out-of-towners would have to pay as well. But I think that's something that should be looked at. And also, I brought up an idea, and this is, again, like Mr. Wexler said, not something that would be for this summer, but for possibly for next summer. Maybe partnering with one of the local nonprofits, like the Boys and Girls Club, to have some of their staff maybe cross-trained as lifeguards, and the children from the Boys and Girls Club could come to the pools and swim for free and have different events at the pools. I think that would be a nice way to provide a service back to the community, to these groups, and also have the group, the nonprofit, help the city by providing their staff as lifeguards for the pools. So that's something I know we'll all be working on over the next few months for this year, and then long-term for the next few years. I just wanted to bring this up, and I brought it up again a few weeks ago, but this through OECD, every 5 years a consolidated plan has to be submitted. And as part of the Citizen Action Committee, we created a survey that residents could fill out to tell us how you would like to see your tax dollars spent. The survey is available on the city's website on the homepage, or you could pick up a hard copy in City Hall. In addition, all Scranton Public Libraries, UNC facilities, Weston Fieldhouse, and they will also be mailed out to public service and nonprofit organizations within the city of Scranton. You can fill out these forms and submit them, either drop them off or mail them to the city. And the deadline to submit that survey is June 6th. And anyone who would like to have their voice heard on how these dollars should be spent is strongly encouraged to fill out a survey and submit it. The second item, also regarding the consolidated plan, is that a meeting will be held by OECD on Wednesday, April 30th at the Center for Independent Living, located at 1142 Sanderson Avenue. The time of the meeting is 6 p.m. It will last about an hour and a half. The purpose of the meeting is to get input from residents of the city related to the developing priorities for the consolidated plan over the next 5 years. So anyone that would like to attend that meeting, I look forward to being there myself and listening to the residents. And again, everyone is encouraged to complete the survey. And that is all I have for today. Thank you.
Mr. Lasko?
Yeah, just briefly, quickly, I would like to apologize to Mr. Quinn and the Hill Neighborhood Association. I would have liked to attend the meeting. Unfortunately, my work schedule tends to occupy my hours many evenings, and it sort of plays havoc with a lot of these meetings, unfortunately. I used to attend the West Side Crime Watch meetings, but they hold them the same evening as our council meetings. But occasionally I'll have a free evening, and I'll try and hit any meeting I can. But, you know, I would definitely like to be a part of the meetings and be a part of what's going on. And if there's any questions or anything I could do, they could always reach me by telephone or by my email address here. But unfortunately, at this time, you know, I have to pay the bills. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, the street sweeping schedule, just wanted to update everyone. Next week, from April 28th to May 2nd, the DPW will be sweeping the streets in the Trip Park section of the city, from Dickens Street to Gibson Street. It was discussed in the caucus that we would like if the city to present a press release to the newspapers so that they can run the schedule each week and maybe put a blurb in or a part in the paper telling people each week where the street sweeper will be. Also, it was discussed in the caucus that we would suggest that maybe residents can be notified when the street sweeper will be coming in their area or down their street, either by paper notice or by putting some sort of sign on the telephone poles. This was an issue that was brought up at the Hill Neighborhood Association meeting last night. It may give people the opportunity to move their cars and make it easier on the DPW workers who are operating the street sweeper. Finally, I would just like to echo Mr. Wexler's comments. We did attend the Hill Neighborhood Association meeting. There was a great crowd. There was great energy in the room. And from what I could see, people want to be involved. They want to see the city do better. And I was glad to be there, and we will be working on those issues in the upcoming weeks. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of updates. First, we've spoken in the past that documents pertinent to City Council had been damaged with the pipes that burst in City Hall. We investigated the possibility of transforming these documents into something that was more appropriate for the time, and also attempting to recover them. That process has started, has begun, and the cost of doing that is covered by the city insurance, so that those documents will be preserved. Second, there will be a opening of proposals for City of Scranton banking services. That will be held on Friday, May 9th, 2014 at 10 a.m. in council chambers. Last year, the administration felt that we had spent too much in banking fees, and they had put out an RFP to see if we could reduce that expenditure for current year. Also received from Lackawanna County Controller Gary DeBilio a notice about a fraud hotline. It says, if you suspect or have knowledge of fraud, waste, or abuse of taxpayer dollars, please report tips by calling. And there is a number, 570-963-6600. And this fraud hotline is being managed by the Lackawanna County Controller's Office. And I will ask that we post this in the clerk's office so that people may see it. Just again, a comment about the caucus. The pre-meeting caucus is open to the public. There is no attempt to hide anything. Again, the purpose of the caucus is to provide information to council members so that they can make informed votes on the legislation. That is and also organizational for the meetings. That is why they're held. If there is someone or a topic that is of importance, that we feel is of importance to the general public, as we have done in the past, we will hold those here in council chambers. Very brief comment on the pools. This comes up every year, and we will look into what pools will be open, what plans there are for the pools. I may be the wrong person to look into this. I am of the belief that swimming is a luxury and not a right or a necessity in the city. I really believe that the city should get out of the pool business entirely. But since we do own the pools, I will look into what will take place this summer and what the plans are for the summer. One of the things that we probably should look into, if we are having difficulty with keeping pools open, maintaining pools, etc., this might be a time to also look into a partnership with the Scranton School District. They too benefit from these pools being open. It accommodates the children who attend the Scranton schools while they're closed for the summer. That may be part of the responsibility or part of the pools, the operation of the pool should be taken up by the school district, and I would like to look into that possibility. And one last thing, it just occurred this morning as I was going to a meeting at somewhere around 8:30 this morning. I heard fire trucks coming towards me and stopped my vehicle at an intersection as the trucks came through and proceeded to watch at least 3 cars come through the opposite intersection and force the safety vehicles to actually stop and wait for them to proceed through the intersection. I don't know whether that's not part of driver training anymore or what, but it was just an egregious disregard for what the law is. I would just like to caution people, please give safety vehicles the right of way, and if there's any question at all in your mind as to whether you should or not, stop, and assess the situation better. But we really need to take into account that these people are performing a service and a safety service to someone at the time that they are moving, and that time is of the essence in many cases. And that is all I had. Thank you.
Mr. McGough?
Yes.
Can I comment on some of the speaker's
please.
questions? There was questions about the abstention by Mr. Loscom last week. Mr. Loscom raised his issues in the caucus about working for CMC while they were here requesting some legislation on their behalf. He felt that he had the appearance of impropriety and a conflict of interest, and I agreed with him. When the vote came up, he withheld his vote based on those reasons, which is a highly ethical stance, and I think correct. The issue's now been raised that abstention somehow or other is a no vote. I can read from Robert's Rules of Order, which, and by the way, we have our own set of rules, and if our rules do not directly impact the question at hand, and we then use Robert's Rules of Order. And Roberts says, a two-thirds vote means at least two-thirds of the votes cast by persons legally entitled to vote, excluding blanks and abstentions. And I think the problem or the confusion has arisen by the speaker is that there's obviously some different types of abstention. Someone might abstain simply because they didn't want to become involved in a political brouhaha. That's not that they're legally ineligible to vote because of a conflict or something. That is, they chose not to vote. That person's vote might be considered in a certain situation a negative vote where you needed two-thirds and there's 4. But when somebody is subject to a conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety, acknowledges that, accepts that, and abstains on that basis, he's ineligible to vote and can't be counted as a negative. So, in my opinion, the vote last week was legal.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, you may.
I just, in response to your comments, I just want to say that, you know, I just disagree with the pool being a luxury, you know, and I just have to say this because I work in the school district and I see some of these kids that don't, you know, their families are poor, and, you know, I think that's the least that the government can, our government can provide is a place to swim, and sometimes it's the only thing that some of these kids have to look forward to. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
5B, for introduction and ordinance, amending Section 108.1 of the Code of the City of Scranton governing disposal of city-owned personal property by adding subsection C.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5C, for introduction, a resolution appointment of Thomas S. Schuster, 1657 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18508, as a member of the Planning Commission for the City of Scranton. Mr. Schuster is replacing Mary Elizabeth Moylan, whose term expired on December 31, 2013, and she held over until April 9, 2014, when she submitted a letter of resignation. Mr. Schuster's term will expire on December 31, 2018.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, it should be noted that Mr. Schuster did submit a resume for council. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5D, for introduction, a resolution accepting a donation presented to the City of Scranton Fire Department from PPL Services Corporation.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
Yes, I'd just like to thank Chief DeSarno for all of his good work on this issue and many others that he's been doing with the fire department.
And I would also like to echo that. Thank PP&L for their donation and Chief DeSarno for working with PP&L on this.
all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5E, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a lease agreement with Horsepower Harley-Davidson Incorporated to lease 5 police package motorcycles for the City of Scranton Police Department.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 15, 2014, and ordinance, amending file of the council number 14, 2013, as amended, entitled an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to execute a deed conveying pedestrian bridge column parcels containing 9 square feet each located in the public right-of-way on the 300 block of Colfax Avenue and conveying an aerial deed for the airspace located on the 300 block of Colfax Avenue, where the pedestrian bridge is erected, subject to a reverter clause, and to execute an air rights agreement between Geisinger Community Medical Center and the City of Scranton be further amended to reflect the new construction dates for the project.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question.
I will be abstaining as previously on this vote.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, file of the Council number 14, 2014, transferring both temporary and permanent easements over 3 parcels of property owned by the City of Scranton located at 2004-2006 Sanderson Avenue, 2008 Sanderson Avenue, and 2011 and a half Rear Boulevard Avenue in connection with the Scranton Sewer Authority's Sanderson Avenue Stormwater Separation Project.
What is the recommendation of the Chair for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes?
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, Resolution Number 50, 2014, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a professional services contract with the PFM Group to provide financial advisory services for the City of Scranton for the period of 4 years from March 9, 2014 through March 8, 2018.
As Chair for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question.
Yes, on the question. Mrs. Schumacher brought up some valid points tonight, and I don't see any harm in maybe tabling this until next week until we can clear some of those questions up, if everybody would be in favor.
Would you make
Yes.
a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion that we table item 7B.
Second.
On the question of tabling item 7B.
I think, just as he stated, there were a couple good issues brought up, and just as a matter of some housekeeping, to make sure that everything is clarified before our final vote on this, I think it would be appropriate.
All those in favor of tabling item 7B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, Resolution Number 51, 2014, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a sidewalk maintenance agreement number as noted with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, PennDOT, for the construction of new sidewalks on the Harrison Avenue Bridge and adjacent Duffy Park, the maintenance for the proposed new sidewalks thereafter to be the responsibility of the City of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the Chair for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question, I would, at this point, apologize for confusing the issue last week. Had I thoroughly read the backup for this, I would have realized that this was for the new construction and on Harrison Avenue and not the current bridge. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes?
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, Resolution Number 52, 2014, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a roadway lighting agreement number as noted with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, PennDOT, for the installation of an electric roadway lighting system for State Route 6011 on the Harrison Avenue Bridge and adjacent Duffy Park. The maintenance of such lighting thereafter to be the responsibility of the City of Scranton, and authorizing said city officials to apply for and accept a highway occupancy permit necessary to complete the project.
What is the recommendation of the Chair for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question, once again, my apologies for confusing the issue. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Loscom?
Yes?
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. McGough?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted. Is there any further business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
This meeting is adjourned.
I would like to welcome Chrissy back to the council chambers. We thought he retired.